Let's go ahead and kick this thing off in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to yet another edition of People Are Terrible. I'm Jeremy, joined as always with Caleb Miles. And as we do over here, we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the week's weirdest headlines. We're going to talk about Florida Man, and then each of us has brought a topic on this episode. I was in the barber shop the other day, and the guys that work up there, the guy that cuts my hair, he's like, over the past week, what we've been doing is we started with the oldest guys year of his birth, and we're listening through their Billboard Top 100 for the year they were born. So the first year was 1970. I went in and they were listening to 1976, and I was like, man, this is kind of a cool little thing. I would like to do that. So on my topic for today, we're going to both talk about the year we were born and some of our favorite standout songs from the Billboard Top 100 of that said year. And then Caleb, you've brought a topic that's just blazing up the internet. What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about, is FACEAPP really working for the Kremlin to steal your identity and swing the election?
Is it FACEAPP or is it Face Swap?
It's FACEAPP.
Okay. Yeah, I love it. I love it. This has been a huge point of interest for all sorts of content creators. It's a discussion that I've heard multiple times over the last week. I think you plan to bring something a little unique and spin to it that I don't think a lot of people have even really considered. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and jump into that. As always, we like to kick things off with the worldwide weird. One of my favorite stories of the week is Iowa official ousted after singing Tupac Shakur's praises to coworkers. This comes via the Huffington Post, and there is a guy named Jerry Foxhaven who was recently let go from his job. Emails show that Iowa Department of Human Services Director Jerry Foxhaven routinely sent messages to employees lauding the rapper even after at least one complained to lawmakers. So holds government office. Big Tupac fan, just repeatedly sending out emails that were Tupac themed. He may or may not have gotten fired because of this. That's not what the official reason for termination was. But where do you weigh in on this, Caleb?
So I'm so happy you brought this up, because I was trying to think of, this was going to be my subject, but I didn't know how long to get into it. I think this is ridiculous if that's the reason he's fired. I started sending Tupac quotes to my boss as soon as this happened via email. Here's my thing is, they do have every right to fire him as long as it's on a work email. I mean, it's one of those things. Like, I think it's stupid. It's at least not as bad as some of the stuff we've heard where people are getting fired for like putting quotes on their own Instagram or whatever. But I just don't understand, unless he was sending like quotes that were suggestive lyrics that Tupac definitely has. I don't really see the issue with liking Tupac.
Yeah, if the subject was, that's why I fucked your bitch, you fat motherfucker, that would be quite a bit different. Tupac is very much a bipolar artist. Like, oh yeah, from one track to the next, you know.
Like if his boss like says some email to him, he just sends back, "I wonder why they call you bitch."
Yeah.
Then I get it.
And like, yeah, from I wonder why they call you bitch to Dear Mama, like Tupac was very much an artist of two different minds. He had the more like socially conscious side, and then he just had the straight up gangster ass, death row records, kind of what they're synonymous with for the most part. He sent out like 4,300 emails to agency employees. And it just sounds like he was a really big fan of that socially conscious side of Tupac's work. This is a 65-year-old man, and he would weekly hold Tupac Fridays where he would play the music in the office. I think this is like great. This guy. Yeah.
No, this dude is Michael Scott. That's who this guy is.
Yes.
Like doesn't even realize. Okay, here's my thing is, I'm from a weird work environment. We play rap music on the loudspeakers over the intercoms at work. So unedited and everything. So I'm definitely from a different work environment. It's very loud, very crass. It sells. So I don't really get it. But it is a little weird depending on the environment. Like I love Ninja Turtles. I wouldn't put Ninja Turtles on every damn email I sent. It's a little weird.
But it's fine though, too.
It's fine.
You know what I mean? Like if like as a member of fandom, as somebody who loves movies more than your average person does, I have a lot of friends who are into cosplay. They're into kind of fringy things that normies would look at and be like, that's a little much. That's a little eccentric. Like this guy on his 65th birthday, he brought in his own Shakur themed cookies, including one decorated with the words "Thug Life." So like the dude just
I love
loves
this guy.
Tupac.
I didn't realize it went to this extreme. His fandom did. That's brilliant.
If somebody reported him and he did get fired for it, does it say something about culture at large? Is hip hop still kind of like for a certain age and a certain demographic, like kind of like devil music or something like that?
100%. We were talking about this at work because, like I said, they do play music on the speakers. And we have had people complain in the past, older people, about rap songs. And then we play some like 80s hair band rock. And I'm like, the stuff they're saying in this is just as bad toward women and drugs as rap is.
Mm-hmm.
There is definitely a certain demographic that still has an issue with hip hop. And I think you get to a certain point where it's just such a part of American culture. I mean, I don't know if it still is, but I know for years, and I would probably argue it still was like the number one selling music form.
Yeah.
And I just feel like there's people who there's always that one person at the job, and I can always picture the person. It's like a woman named Carol who's upset about everything.
So today in meth, we got a couple of big stories this week coming out of the world of methamphetamines. You guys get excited to feel like you've got bugs crawling all over your skin or something. So apparently this is a new thing that people are doing. The New York Daily News is reporting that people have found a substitute for methamphetamines. That's right. Methamphetamines not always readily available, but wasp spray, on the other hand, wasp spray you can always find. And apparently there's a bizarre new drug trend that is bugging authorities in West Virginia. Police on Monday warned that drug dealers are making synthetic methamphetamine out of wasp spray and selling it on the street in Boone County, according to local reports. So, I mean, meth in itself, it's made from a bunch of just disgusting household chemicals. It's not like people are just straight up huffing wasp spray, I don't think. But it's still just, it's like, how do you find out, I wonder, like, who's the first person that decides they're going to toss these things together and come up with some sort of concoction that it may get you high or it may just instantly kill you.
And I was like, I got to just figure it out. It's the trial and error process on that is pretty extreme.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's like people smoking embalming fluid. Like that's who came up with that?
Yeah, it's bizarre to me. I mean, and then we can go all the way back in time to like who decided that these berries were edible and these berries were poisonous, but this is like recreational shit. This isn't like for survival. You don't have to do crystal meth. Like you can live a fine, full, productive life without ever doing crystal meth. So the fact that people are like willing to, I've always, and you and I have talked about, drugs and stuff in the past, and we both have our own relationship with the drug culture, I guess I should say, because you weren't really a user in the same way that I was.
Mine was definitely more on the capitalist end, my relationship to it.
And I don't know that you did. I don't even think we should go there. But like, some people cook it, and it's a very dangerous process from what I've heard. What I've seen.
Extremely dangerous.
I had a friend back in high school, knew him for years and years and years, and he got bad into that stuff and ended up blowing up the little RV or whatever that he was living in, killed himself on accident cooking this stuff. Like, it's combustible, it'll blow up. So it's always had a very negative connotation to me. I mean, even more than other drugs. It's like cocaine or methamphetamines, that's like a no-brainer. It's coke all day, right? I don't understand why do the other.
So the trailer next to us when we grew up used to cook meth, and I remember me one time it literally burst on flames. So it's all, and we're probably like 19 at the time. this trailer just burst into huge
Holy
flames.
crap.
Insane flames. So me and my brother are like sitting on our porch just watching this fucking place burn. My brother runs out. He's like, I'm gonna go make some popcorn. He literally got out a big old tub of popcorn. I'm like, we probably shouldn't have been out there watching this place fucking burn with fumes in the air.
Holy shit. That's wild. You know, I
so,
just now realized I have prioritized our screen really weird here. You get a big rectangle and I'm in a square.
And that's how it should be.
All right, fair enough. All right, so guys, just don't do anything with wasp spray. This says in Tennessee, a man high on wasp spray meth went into a family's home on December 2017. Well, this isn't very current, but he cut himself with a knife, threw a dresser down the stairs, jumped from a second floor window, took off his clothes, climbed onto a tree, and then threw fecal matter at the officers trying to arrest him. So,
well, wasp spray sounds like a hell of a high.
But it doesn't end there. I mean, that's just a piece of the larger puzzle in the picture that we're trying to paint for you this week in meth. Tennessee police warn public of meth-gators. So, on a more or less serious note, this is a quote from the police department. On a more or less serious note, folks, please don't flush your drugs, okay? When you send something down the sewer pipe, it ends up in the retention ponds for processing before it's sent downstream. Now our sewer guys take great pride in releasing water that is cleaner than what it is in the creek, but they're not really prepared for meth. Ducks, geese, and other fowl frequent our treatment ponds, and we shudder to think what them all hyped up on meth would do. Furthermore, if it made it far enough, we could create meth-gators in Shoal Creek and Tennessee rivers that run down into North Alabama. They've had enough methed up animals in the past few weeks without our help, so if you need to dispose of your drugs, just give us a call, and we'll make sure they're disposed of in the proper way. So I like the little reference they throw in there. There's an Easter egg to one of our past stories. They've had enough methed up animals over the past few weeks. Caleb, what was that methed up animal?
The meth squirrel? Are we talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought this was a Florida story. I didn't read where it was from. My brain went right to Florida when I saw this.
100%. How could it not be?
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is Florida. I didn't realize it was Tennessee.
Tennessee and North Alabama, yeah.
Alabama. That makes sense too. Bama's a crazy place. I just want to see a movie of this. Like, imagine Crawl, but they're all methed out.
I'm not 100% convinced that the gators in Crawl weren't on meth, if I'm being honest.
That's what happened.
They were jacked up. They were definitely agitated. They were in a state of agitation, similar to what you would be if you huffed huffed wasp spray.
Maybe that's what happened. Maybe they're using too much wasp spray, and the gators getting high on that. We don't know.
Yeah, this is obviously
do they know
a
they're
gist,
actually
right?
on meth? I mean, did they like get one and then do a biopsy on it? And
No,
like,
I think they're being cheeky, if I'm being honest. I read the stories and it was just like this. Okay, so they tried to arrest somebody. Basically what happened is what you would think. They tried to arrest somebody and the person started dumping their drugs down the, started trying to flush their meth, and that was the catalyst of all of it. So the story says, police in Tennessee are warning residents against flushing drugs down the toilet in the event of a potential drug bust. They say the animals could ingest the substances and wreak havoc on the community. I just think that's such a great concept.
I just want to see like a B movie, B movie piranha type Sharknado meth gator movie. I think it'd be brilliant.
I thought you were talking about a sequel to the Jerry Seinfeld movie for a second. I was like, yeah, another B movie. That was
another B movie where he's doing meth. Jerry Seinfeld.
Okay, so apparently there was a python and other animals that were addicted to meth at an Australian prison. So
this is just an epidemic now?
I guess.
Just animals on meth?
I guess so. Wow. Yeah. Dirty drug, man. Dirty drug. It's got to be the worst one out there.
Yeah, my number one tip for success is don't do meth.
Yeah.
And then my number two is don't huff wasp spray.
100%. Well, I think that's good advice. So let's go ahead and take that one to the bank and move on from the worldwide weird and welcome and head to Florida for the... welcome to Florida. Florida man allegedly used scissors to cut off penis of wife's lover. Not very funny story. I Googled Florida man and this is what happened. Yeah, you heard about this?
Yeah, so apparently because Google knows everything you do online. Because I search Florida Man sometimes, now my wife gets tons of notifications for Florida Man.
Nice.
And so she was like, she's like, I don't, it's crazy shit just going on in Florida, but I'm always getting notifications. And this is one of the ones she got.
So a Florida man is in custody for allegedly using a pair of scissors to cut off the penis of the man he suspected his wife of sleeping with. He was a 49-year-old, arrested Sunday after his neighbor told a deputy that the man tied him up at gunpoint and cut off his penis with a pair of scissors. Then he allegedly left with the severed penis, according to the police. The neighbor, who was not named, told them that he came over with a handgun, threatened to kill him if he resisted, and then forced the man up to his bedroom, tied him down, and chopped his wang off. This is one of those stories that, on one hand, it's like, you kind of asked for it.
It's brutal, but you understand it.
Yeah, but it crosses the line over to like, it is brutal. I understand the motivation behind it. If the circumstances were different, I would kind of be on the guy's side. If he came home and this man was having sex with his wife and he held him at gunpoint and cut his dick off in his own home, I would kind of be like, well, that's what fucking happens. You went into this man's home and you were having sex with his wife.
And then it was like a moment of like fury and rage. It kind of just happened. That makes a lot more sense.
Correct. This happened at the guy's house. So the perpetrator found out that the wife was having sex with this guy, went over to his house. There were kids in the home when it happened. He took the guy upstairs into a bedroom and did it. And then he left with the penis. Like, in my mind, and back in the day, like Lorena Bobbitt, everybody knows that name. She was the lady that cut off her husband's dick. This guy, nobody's going to remember his name because we're in a state of just constant crazy at this point that it's so fucking hard to keep up with. And it's fucked up that he took the dick with him. If he would have left it there, maybe they could have like reattached it. But no, this guy.
I think that was probably the point. He was like, "Fuck no, this guy's never getting it back."
Yes. So castration for infidelity. What do you think, man? Does the punishment match the crime?
No, I think like castration for like rape. Okay,
Yeah.
Infidelity. I think it's a little too harsh. I know if heaven forbid something like that happened to me with my wife, I would be crushed. But I'm not going to destroy my life. I'm going to kick her out the damn house, and but not going to go because you're just destroying your life even further than it's already destroyed.
Dude, and I understand emotions are not the most rational. They're not the most logical all the time. But you have to accept that to you, or to that man, you are nothing. You are a concept. I mean, maybe they were best friends. I couldn't speak to that. But I just say in all cases of infidelity, it's like, that motherfucker doesn't owe you anything. It's the woman that you're in a relationship with. She's the one who fucked up. That guy just did what people would maybe do in that situation. Your wife or your husband, they're the one that has the obligation to you. They're the ones who did you dirty, not the other party involved. So I think there's a lot
stranger doesn't owe you anything. I mean, I do think we all owe each other human decency, but I've known other situations where a guy's sleeping with a chick and then all of a sudden her husband calls and he's like, dude, I didn't even know she was married.
Correct.
There's shit like that happens all the time. And it's whoever is in the marriage and cheating on you is the one responsible, whether it's the husband or the wife, not the person they're sleeping with. That being said, don't fuck other people's wives and husbands. It's a good rule of thumb.
100%. Yes, it is morally questionable of the person who does it. Again, they just don't have that same... they haven't spent years with you. The trust is between the couple. So I always have said, like, you don't need to retaliate against that person. Just if you have to do something, break up with the fucking piece of shit who decided that they were gonna just throw your relationship away like that. And this, it's dark, it's morbid, it's obviously way over the top. I don't know, man. I can't imagine being in that guy's situation, like what it must be like to go through life without a penis.
No, man. No, that sounds miserable. At that point, like in this sounds hyperbolic, but I really don't know if it would be better to just shoot me.
Yeah, I don't know how chicks do it. If I'm being honest, like, how do you make it through life without a penis?
Without a dick. Maybe that's what he should do. He should just get a sex change.
Fuck yeah, halfway there.
Woman of the year.
Trust me, the hard part is behind you.
Yeah, I was gonna say the worst part's behind you, man.
Author of popular Florida man. Well, let me reverse the order of this. I don't want to bury the lead. Okay, masturbating Florida man got a handful of cops' butt during arrest.
Naturally.
Yes, and not the most sensational headline, but it was right here in Pensacola.
Sounds like there was a
Walmart.
lot of sensation going on during that.
Oh yeah. So we've got a guy. Let's see. Let me turn this off. All right. A Florida man who has been accused of masturbating in a Walmart parking lot grabbed a deputy's buttocks while he was being arrested, saying, "quote Let me feel it. Let me just feel it." Love it. Trenton James Rich of Pensacola was detained last Saturday by an officer from the Escambia County Sheriff's Office who responded to the North Navy Boulevard Walmart just after 4:30 p.m. after a complaint was filed about indecent exposure, the Pensacola News-Journal reported. So, yeah, this happened the other day. I live in Pensacola, for those of you guys who are joining us for the first time. This was a 19-year-old suspect who was listed as homeless in his jail records. Allegedly, he made a number of lewd comments towards the officer and resisted arrest before attempting to flee the area. The local media...
Do they say if it's a female or male officer?
I was reading... it with bated breath to find out the answer to that question. That is a very valid question. It was a dude.
Yeah, okay. Which somehow makes the story even better. I don't know why.
Oh, 100%. He gave his name to the officer when he was approached, but then exposed his genitals and said, "Suck on it." Shortly after a brief tussle, he allegedly stepped back, put his hands into the karate chop stance, and started swinging at the deputy. I fucking love the details, man. These stories, they're really about the details.
Very investigative journalism. They went like into detail with that one.
Yeah. So, I mean, he must have been out there a while. You know, that's what I was like. If the cops got
You don't
called,
start masturbating in Walmart if you've been out there only a day or two.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But the act itself, like this particular session must have went on for close to, I mean, how long would it take a cop to respond to? I think we'll say 20 minutes. The information, which was based on a witness, included the allegation that he was seen, quote unquote, pleasuring himself. So, yeah, they've got some witnesses.
Have you ever seen a homeless man masturbate in public?
No. I think
have.
you did.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
I can't remember. I think it was in Hollywood, but I'm pretty sure. But it might have been Seattle. But I'm 90% sure it was in Hollywood. And this dude's just like laying on the sidewalk, completely laying down, dick out, just like jackhammering that thing.
It's so sad. Like, I mean, it's funny. It's fucked up. We sit here talking about all this stuff, but like homeless people, like, they're like out there like animals, man. It fucking sucks. Like,
it's all mental, not all, but most of it's mental illness.
Yeah. And it's got to be dehumanizing in the first place. So it's like all of those like social graces, all of the things that we see as normalcy, we take it for granted. It's like they've lost all of that, like the shame that goes along with these kind of things. Like a lot of people would be embarrassed. They don't have that anymore a lot of times.
Well, I mean, and this is it sounds like I'm making a joke, but I don't mean it that way. Is like once you're shitting on a sidewalk in front of people, that kind of goes out the door. Like when you have to shit outdoors constantly, your level of shame would instantly go down.
Yeah. So the same day, a 55-year-old Florida man was arrested. This is in Pensacola also, after being accused of leaving his wife naked on the side of the highway and then setting fire to her vehicle. So, yeah, keep it up, Pensacola. Keep it up.
Did it say why?
No, it doesn't.
See, that's a better way to handle it. It's still fucked up, but much better way to handle infidelity if that is the case there.
Yes. That's actually a good point. That's more, it's like you're definitely going to feel it, but it's not going to ruin you or deform you for the rest of your life.
Yes. It's fucked up, but it's understandable if that's the backstory behind it.
Interesting stuff going on out here in Florida. So, on that note, though, and I think we've alluded to it in the past, there's an article in the Inquisitor that was just now published this week, saying that the Florida Man author, the guy who basically tweeted all of the Florida Man headlines, decided after further reflection that he was going to quit doing it. That laughing at the Florida Man headlines is like not good for people with mental illness, for people dealing with the kind of problems and poverty and stuff that that is kind of put upon them, and then they get thrown into the national stage and basically are ridiculed over things that vary from being silly and harmless, like you and I talk about some stuff that just outright is funny, and then also, and it sucks to have to be like self-aware, but we also kind of make fun of stuff that isn't funny, that's actually inherently kind of tragic or disturbing and stuff like that. So I'm trying to pull up the article, but what are your thoughts on this? How do you weigh in on that?
I think there's a line, like we try, not saying we haven't crossed it, to when people are dying, not to make fun of it, you know.
Yes.
Someone's like molested or raped or you know, something, we try not to make fun of it too much. And even when we do make fun of a headline, with the like the guy, the one that was the most serious was the dude who gets his penis cut off. We didn't like rip into it too bad, you know?
No.
Like we're always kind of like try to be. That being said, my stance on humor is you got to be able to laugh at this shit. If not, the world is a super tragic place that I don't want to live in.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. It's like, and there are certainly plenty of stories that we don't include in here. Every Florida Man story is not created equal. There are, you know, if it's like you mentioned, if it's sexual abuse against minors and stuff like that, 9 times out of 10, we're not even going to fucking touch it. We're just not even going to go there in the first place. There are times like that, the story that we just now discussed with the Florida Man jerking off in the parking lot of the Walmart. To me, that's fair game. Should they show the guy's picture in the articles?
No, I don't think that. I feel like a lot of this stuff we shouldn't show people's pictures in general. But then there is the other side of it where we do want to demonize negative behavior, you know? So you can always take that angle. I'm not necessarily thinking that's an angle I take, but you can always use the angle of, well, we need to stamp out crazy, harmful behavior, and mockery is one of the most effective ways to do that.
Back to shame, you know, it's that idea of like, as a society, we've got set standards of what is acceptable behavior, and if you step outside of those lines, you can be sure that people are going to call you for it. However, is there ever going to be a benefit are people with mental illness ever going to reap the benefit of that? I mean, are some of these people even capable of learning the lesson, you know?
I would agree with that, but I don't think all of these Florida Man headlines are all mental illness or the poverty excuse. Fuck the poverty excuse. I hate that shit. I grew up dirt poor in the hood. You know, don't use that as an excuse. If you use that excuse, you can justify any behavior. So some of this stuff, I'm like, no, we should shame it. Mental health is where I tend to be a little different. Like, you know, the masturbating is very funny as shit, but also is kind of tragic.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. I think it's definitely worth having. I do agree. Like, it's interesting. Like, do social factors alone dictate what a person's actions are? I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but I do think that everything together kind of contributes to where a person ends up. But yet, no, I don't believe that being poor is an excuse to do something terrible, but maybe the circumstances contributed in some way to where the person ended up. Not that you can explain away or justify it that way, but that there probably is, a relationship
thing. If you watch like any of these like Girls Incarcerated, I don't know if you've seen on Netflix. Well, it's a great documentary series about young girls, like teenage girls, and they do predominantly come from poverty and really fucked up homes, you know. And it's sad. But then there's also the other side of, you're like, oh, that 16-year-old girl's so sad. Then you're like, oh, she armed 13 people at gunpoint and put a gun in their mouth.
Right.
So fuck her.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and I think that that's a good point too. At some point, it's just kind of like, fuck them. They obviously didn't have the same kind of respect or concern about the well-being or happiness of other people. I mean, how many kids were probably traumatized if they saw that guy whacking it in the parking lot of Walmart? I'm sure that wasn't what he was worried about, is like, oh, I don't want to, emotionally cause this person distress or something like that. So like, to give them the kind of consideration that they wouldn't give other people. I don't know if that really is a argument worth exploring. But I just feel like, if the roles were reversed, we as a society, we do tend to laugh, when we can, because there's just so much horrible shit around us. Like you said, it's like to be able to find humor in things, even if it's dark in nature. I think I think it's very human.
Oh, 100%. Like I hate when people do the thing too of that affects me, therefore you can't joke about it. You know,
Yes.
Everything affects someone, and it makes, I don't know. It's one of those things that everything's offensive to someone. Everything is, we shouldn't laugh about, you know, like it's not that serious. It is that serious, but you can't treat the entire life that way, I guess is the best way to put it.
I was wondering, there was definitely been more than one stand-up comic that has said that, but it's 100% valid. It's like, everybody's laughing until the joke is about you, and then all of a sudden it's not funny, and something applies to everything applies to someone, like, just for example, I'm somebody who grew up asthmatic, and I'll laugh at a stand-up special all the way through, and then the comic will say something about asthma, and I'm like, that's not funny. Well, no, it's not funny because it's about me, but I'm willing to laugh at the expense of others on every other joke all the way along. So it's like, eventually you just gotta laugh. Like, it is what it is.
Yes.
Like, why are we so self-serious that we can't just laugh at ourselves?
Well, and that's the thing is, like, okay, I'll use my cancer. I had cancer, and that would be like me laughing through a whole thing and then getting offended when he makes a cancer joke, when he made an AIDS joke 10 minutes before, or a rape joke, or whatever super offensive thing, or racism joke that hasn't affected me.
Yeah.
If, there's, first of all, I know people deal with things in different ways. I made so many jokes about my cancer to keep my head in a good spot, because that's the way I deal with shit, is through humor. So I feel like there is a place for humor.
Yeah, I agree. So you guys let us know about your thoughts on the Florida Man topic down in the comments section. It's one of my favorite segments of the show. I always enjoy kind of going through that stuff. And yeah, there are some times that I Google it and I'm just like, oh, the world's fucked. But then other times I get a good laugh out of it. And I think that's important from time to time. So, all right, let's go ahead and switch gears, and we'll talk about your topic. So go ahead and kick us off with the topic of the week.
So I downloaded FaceApp like everyone else, just to fuck around with it and see what I'd look like in old age, having a good time. Heard 1% worked. Oh my God, delete it off your phone. The Russians are going to use it. And then so I knew another person who was freaked out about it. So I wanted to do some research. The first thing I did was I just started reading on it, and seeing what all the concern was. So apparently the concern comes from privacy policy. The privacy policy, in short, essentially says, that we can use your pictures for advertising. We can, once you upload them to us, essentially the pictures are, it's what Instagram's stuff says. It's what Facebook stuff says. That's how Facebook can send you their memories thing, is because they're able to use your pictures. So it's very pretty standard, in my opinion. I feel like the big hoopla comes from two things. One is the tech itself. So the way the tech works is it doesn't process the image on your phone. It sends the image to a server that processes the picture and sends it immediately back to you. The reason I feel this has been such hysteria around it is because it's a small company based out of Russia who developed this app. And because of some, I think, founded and some unfounded hysteria about Russia in the media, I feel like We know they did mess with our election. We know that they've been trying to digitally fuck with us. We know that. But there's also been an exaggeration of that where everyone's a Russian spy. I feel like this is being pushed, and I feel it's a lot of hysteria when Americans don't give two shits about their internet privacy when it comes to things. We give it out constantly. Snapchat does just as much as this app does. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think we both agree that Russia, it is known that Russia did interfere with the election. It is known that Russia has, yes, like you said, messed with us in the digital space. So it's not completely unfounded that people would be suspicious of it. However, I also agree that it's been really conflated because the TOC of pretty much every app is less about what they are going to do and more about what you can't sue them for.
Exactly.
Like, they're so thorough, and it's to protect them from liability. They have to include everything for just in case. I mean, when you look at like the one side of it is they're using it to train AI. Okay, I don't really care about that. That's fine. If they want to use the pictures to train the AI so that the old age app can look better in the next generation, that's fine. If they want to use the images to sell them to make money, I have a bit more of a problem with that. It's like, if you're going to use my likeness, then I should at least get some sort of compensation for it. But it's understood, again, that most terms of conditions kind of fall in that same, like, they all are very intrusive of our privacy, yet nobody cares. If you go through the terms of conditions with a fine-tooth comb of pretty much any app that people use regularly, it would trigger some red flags. Mm-hmm. Basically, this is a byproduct of just everybody's on a fad. Oh, isn't it cool? Isn't it cool? And then there's the actually person that comes in and says, actually, did you know that Russia is stealing your data? Because there's always got to be a naysayer, right? Whether it's me, whether it's you, there's always going to be somebody that's like, you guys think the Macarena is cool, but really the Macarena is lame, right? And so, like, it's of course it was going to happen. I do feel like, the word is xenophobia. I do feel like there is a little bit of, because it's Russia, because historically Russia has kind of been the bad guy in our narrative, that there's a little bit more distrust towards Russians than there would be maybe a Japanese app developer that had the similar terms and conditions.
I feel, and here's my thing is, what do you think the rest of the world feels when they sign up for Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter,
Correct.
Instagram?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Like, those terms and conditions are brutal. Snapchats are just as bad as this app's, maybe probably worse. I haven't looked into it enough, but they're just as bad. And I saw a lot of people, well, they're gonna use this to humiliate us. If you're worried about that, trust me, Americans humiliate themselves enough on social media. If that's one of your concerns, you're an idiot. Or, you know what? They're going to steal my pictures. Oh, maybe you should make them work and go to your Facebook and Instagram and your Twitter if you want them to steal your pictures.
Yeah.
I feel like I agree. It's xenophobia. And if this were an American company, no one would care about this. It wouldn't even be an issue. And I feel like I feel like in our culture, your xenophobia is okay depending on what side of the aisle you fall. So if you're on the left, you're a little more okay to be xenophobic against Russians and Israelis. If you're on the right, you can be xenophobic against Mexicans and Middle Eastern people, and we're very selective from a political narrative because of media and talking heads like us. I think, we form these opinions. If this were because most of the concerns I'm seeing are from, like CNN and those places that have pushed Russia pretty heavily, New York Times and stuff. You're not really seeing it as much on the other side. But if this were a Iraqi app or whatever, from Iraq, this would be all over Fox News too.
I think that's a really good point that you bring up. I guess in defense of my ideology specifically. I think that there is a definite xenophobia implies something that is very broad and is specifically refers to other countries. Where I am critical of the Israeli state, I think Israeli people are wonderful. You know what I mean? While I am suspicious of the Russian state, the government, I think that Russian people are probably fantastic. While I'm critical of the American government, I don't hold you responsible for what the fucking American government does. So, like, I think that politics do play a big factor in it, and I think it's less about the peoples of said country and more about the representatives of said country.
I feel like that is true to an extent, but this is a private company in Russia.
Correct.
And it is the people. And then you look at, okay, so I've been very critical of our immigration system, you know, and I feel like we do have a problem with immigration that we do need to get under control. But I'm like you, I think Mexican people are wonderful. I'm of Mexican descent. So, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be pretty hypocritical of me to say that. And, and I do feel like we do this thing where we conflate criticism of it. And I even just did it, you know, I'm like, I see this as just xenophobia. And I understand where the concern comes from. I just feel like it's hysteria, partially for clicks, because this is something that is part of the reason we're talking about it now is maybe we'll get some hits on it, you know? And you don't think some of these websites are like, oh man, if we can freak everyone out to read all the privacy concerns, it'll really help. I feel like a lot of this it's businesses being businesses, and that's what journalism is, you know, anymore. I don't know if it's anymore. I think it's always been somewhat of a business, obviously, but I feel like it's a lot of left and right about flaming fires to get ratings and clicks, you know?
Absolutely.
And I feel this is it.
Part of what has been shared a lot is a section of the terms of service, and the quote is, "You grant FACEAPP a perpetual, irrevocable, non-exclusive, royalty-free, worldwide, fully paid, transferable, sub-licensable license to use, reproduce, modify, adapt, publish, translate, create derivative works from, distribute, publicly perform, and display your user content at any time, any name, username, or likeness provided in connection with your user content in all media formats and channels now known or later developed without compensation to you." So there is also, in that in itself, yes, I think that's troubling. I mean, I don't agree with that. But I also agree with you still that is almost standard procedure. I don't know that same statement wouldn't be in 50% of the apps that people download. I don't really know, because people haven't decided yet to expose other companies. I know that, you know, the Facebook privacy thing's been a big deal.
I know Instagram for a while, I don't know if they fixed it, have this thing where the same thing where it was, you know, we essentially own your photos. We can use them for advertising. We can do whatever. You know, you're on our service, you upload them. This is the transaction you partake in. So I know for a time, I don't know if it's been fixed yet, this was a thing with Instagram.
And even if these little guy Russian app developers that came up with this had nothing but pure intent, what if a government agency decides that they want to buy the technology or buy this smaller company, and now all of a sudden they're able to use everything that was compiled from this previous non-malicious intent? But again, that's all just speculative, but yeah. I can understand why people are concerned. I just would encourage them to start reading the terms and conditions of everything they download.
That's the thing, is I actually think we should all be a little more concerned with our privacy. You know, we kind of live in a weird state where it kind of feels like privacy is dead, unfortunately. And some of the stuff on Facebook and Twitter and all the American social medias is pretty terrifying. And I'm going to take it one step further. When you download an app on your phone, a free app specifically, but pretty much most, when you download a free app, they got to make money some way. So it's either ads, which is part, or they sell your data. They check what websites you go, they look at your patterns. That's why my wife can look at something on Pinterest. I don't even have a Pinterest account, and boom, next day it's in my Instagram account.
Right.
An ad for it. is because they're selling your data. They already know that that's my wife. This is what she's looking at. Let's send it over to the husband's Instagram feed so he can see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is standard. And then the concern of processing at on a server, just to clarify for people, most of the servers are based in America. They're Amazon servers that they send them to. They've already investigated it, and it shows that they delete the pictures within 48 hours after you upload them. They delete them after the processing. So we've already kind of looked into it, and it doesn't seem like any of an issue. I know Congress wants to. Was it Chuck Schumer who wants the FBI to investigate?
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I think it was Schumer, but he wants the FBI to investigate the company. That being said, fine, investigate. I'm fine with that. I'm never going to be one who's going to stop the FBI from giving us more knowledge. I feel like more knowledge is great.
Sure.
But as of right now this could change. I could look back and go, man, I was an idiot. I was wrong. As of right now, I just don't see. I feel like it's because it's another country. When this privacy policy was very similar in all of our stuff, no one gave a shit about it. And to me, Facebook and Google are absolutely as much terrifying as that little company. And honestly, probably as terrifying as the entire Russian government and the American government. Those are giant companies that are terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so you know, I don't know if you're aware of this, but just to kind of show that we both do kind of flip-flop on certain things. This is a Vox article that I got all of my information from in this particular circumstance, and the article is titled "Privacy Concerns over Viral Photo Apps Are Totally Valid, but They're Also Often Overblown," and then subtitled "The Panic About FaceApp's Old Person Filter Isn't Wrong Exactly, It's Just Tinged with xenophobia and devoid of context." So this editorial kind of falls on that side.
Yeah, I just say from Vox, like, as someone that, again, I hate to paint an entire organization. I have some issues with Vox, but I feel like that right there sounds pretty logical. Absolutely. There's things you can be concerned about, but it's coming from a hysteria, xenophobic place, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation. And I do feel like something like Facebook has been under a lot of scrutiny lately, but not by everyone, just by the more, I guess, free-thinking, intellectual group of people, I know that I've been socially aware of it for quite a few years. I mean, they're constantly battling litigation and things like that because of privacy. So if you are one of the people that are listening to this podcast right now and you are concerned about privacy, do something about it. Don't, like Caleb, you said it right at the very beginning. We are willing to give up every bit of our privacy on our own volition and then get defensive about it when somebody says, like, hey, this thing right here is compiling the data that you're freely giving out constantly.
Yeah, we're very willy-nilly with all our privacy, myself included. I mean, we do this podcast every week. There's, hundreds of hours at this point of us talking and use our voices and our image. They could even make me talk from an old man face now, apparently, at this point.
Yeah. And to be honest, man, my justification, my rationalization for all of this is like, if there are a billion people out there to choose who to steal information from, I got to be pretty far down that fucking list of
no one gives
priorities.
A shit about us.
Right.
Like, it's not gonna happen.
And that's why I don't worry about it. There are so many more successful, more interesting, more whatever people that, like, I'm the last thing that they're fucking worried about. So yeah, that's kind of where I fall on it. Anything else before we move on?
I feel like that pretty much sums it up.
All right, my man. Well, as I mentioned at the top, I was in the barber shop the other day, and my barber Coy was telling me that they recently had started this kind of new exercise of taking the year that they were born, looking and then playing on Spotify the top Billboard hits from that year. So I asked Caleb to just kind of look at his top 100. I did the same. I'm from 82. Caleb's 85, and we're just going to kind of talk about a couple of the songs from the years that we were born that we, like, dislike, just kind of whatever you think about it. And first of all, when you were looking over the list of top songs from 85, what is your kind of overall impression of it?
Is a stellar year for music.
It's so funny, man. I'm always looking for patterns, whether I do it intentionally or unintentionally. But number one was Careless Whisper by Wham / George Michael. You and I talked about Careless Whisper just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that's what was number one. So you're doing the 85 first?
Yeah. Let's talk about yours. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, no, that was my number one thing that I noticed because I was like, are you kidding me? This is the third mention to Careless Whisper.
Oh, it is because of the sax player.
My facial hair, the sax player, and now this.
Nice.
So that was the number one on the list. Also, number one for the year of 85.
Yeah.
Which is insane because I knew that song was big. I don't think I realized how big that song was.
It's a very good song, I think.
It's an excellent song. I went back and watched the video this morning, and with today's modern sensibilities, it's almost comical that we did not know that George Michael was gay.
Oh, for sure.
Like watching that, I'm like, really? This is like the worst kept secret I've ever fucking seen. Yeah.
Man, 85 is stacked, dude.
Dude, number two, I threw it on there, even though I don't necessarily like the song just because it is such a classic, was number two was Like a Virgin.
Uh-huh.
And then one of my favorite songs was my number three choice was Everybody Wants to Rule the World. It came in at number 7.
Such a great song. One of my favorite songs.
Any Tears for Fears song is just phenomenal. Which they're on this list a bunch.
Curious, did you ever watch Dennis Miller on HBO back in the day? Are you aware of it?
I love Dennis Miller.
That was the opening intro for every one of his episodes was Everybody Wants to Rule the World.
Really? I didn't remember that.
Yeah, it starts off, he's like breaking pool balls, and one of them's the globe, and it's playing the song. Yeah, I've always thought that song is just so excellent.
The one that, and then probably my favorite song, though, maybe, there's so many, maybe my favorite song on this entire list is Take Me On by Aha.
Oh, yeah, Take On Me.
Take On Me, yeah.
So
Take
good.
On Me. Such a good song. And one of the best music videos of all time.
As I'm looking at this, like 85 was a really good year for music. So like, do you feel like this is music that is it music that you grew up listening to?
So a lot of this stuff wasn't stuff that I really got into until my teen years, when I really got into like 80s synth and new wave and stuff, and which I still think is a phenomenal genre that is just next level. It wasn't until that. Now there's certain things on this list that I did hear, like Born in the USA was something that came in at number 92 on the list, something I definitely heard. And We Are the World, of course, was next level, huge. The USA for Africa, charity event. And then a lot of this stuff, though, Smooth Operator is one of the few ones that I can say I legitimately listened to as a kid. My mom listened to that and Careless Whisper constantly.
Such good songs. All right, what else? What else is on your mind? I'm looking right here. You got St. Elmo's Fire from St. Elmo's Fire. That's a good one. Another
one, Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds.
Another great John Hughes movie soundtrack.
And that's my whole reason I love that song is because of the film. Because of Breakfast Club. And now the one that cracked me up was the Miami Vice theme. Made it up to number 27 on the year.
I don't know what that is.
It's literally just a techno-ish synth track. There's no lyrics, nothing.
I'll have to listen to that because I'm not familiar.
It's not particularly great in my opinion, but it just showed that show was to where that shot up to number 27, this synth track.
I think the Herbie Hancock theme from Beverly Hills Cop got pretty big as well.
Oh, that's an amazing thing. There was also the Pointer Sisters song from the Beverly Hills Cop was on this list too.
Oh, nice. Which
funny side story. My brother, my older brother, he would always get cold and his nipples would get hard when we were kids. So I always called them the Pointer Sisters. Walking on Sunshine by Katrina and the Waves came in at number 75.
Yeah.
Now all I can think of is Futurama. And that's probably the most of the list. But overall, I was just unbelievably impressed with the quality of music. But that being said, it might just be nostalgia. That makes me think it's such a great year.
Shout Tears for Fear, number 21.
Yeah.
Excellent
Shout.
song. Let's see what other ones kind of jumped out to me. I like the Starship song, We Built This City on Rock and Roll.
Yep. We built this city.
Yeah, it's a good one. So many. Yeah, this is actually a really good year. Susudio by Phil Collins. What other ones do I want to touch on before
My
we
House by what's the name of the people who did My House? In Our House. That one.
Oh yeah. Oh God, I don't know. Our house.
Yeah,
in the
they're on
middle
this
of
list.
our street. One that I actually cover that I really like.
No,
also.
not that one. The In My House. That one. What the hell is
I don't know if I
now?
know it. Oh, We Don't Need Another Hero from Thunderdome, Tina Turner. That's a good one.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say that too.
Boys of Summer, though. Don Henley's Boys of Summer. That's actually a really good song. I learned that one on guitar a couple years
California
back.
Girls by David Lee Roth.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
There's like literally all of these are there's very few on here that I'm not that familiar with.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the year we were born, obviously. We're too young to have been listening
Mary Jane
to
Girls,
it.
In My House. In My House. Dun,
Oh,
dun,
yeah.
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Private Dancer. Yeah, it's weird, like you said about nostalgia, but I think that's what, like, I think music is so potent because it kind of puts us in a time and a place. And, you know, about nostalgia is like, it was, we idealize a time that we had less responsibilities. I think like the simpler life was, the more fondly we remember it. So these songs from our youth, they tend to really resonate. And then the fact that they're top 100 Billboard songs, we've been exposed to them ever since then. And it's like, it's later on in life, obviously, that you're going to realize, because you're not listening to music the first year of your life, you know, but it's just like cool to go back and be like, oh, wow, all these songs that I recognize are from that particular year. So I think so far, I think I got to give the edge to 85 as far as being the better year.
Crazy stacked year.
Top Billboard 1982. 1982 was quite a transitional time.
Too.
There absolutely is. I think the difference, like 85 was full swing in the 80s. 82, we were still kind of had one foot in the late 70s, one foot in the early 80s. So there was like, it was just now getting into a lot of the new wave that was completely in full swing in 85. But let me see. I actually wrote down a couple, and these are in no particular order.
There's literally one of my favorite songs of all time came out this year. I didn't realize.
Is it Get Down on It?
No, it's what's it called? Let me go back to the name. I just scrolled past it. It is. Oh man, now where'd it go? I cannot think of the name of the band. It's Sweet Dreams is another one. That's by Air Supply. I didn't realize that's a great song.
Oh yeah, for sure. Actually, I don't know that I know that one. I think you're thinking of the Eurythmics as well. That's what my first thought was. The Annie Lennox Sweet Dreams are made of these. That's what I was thinking
of. That isn't.
So do you know Get Down on It by Kool and the Gang?
Yeah.
That shit is the jam, dude. Such a good song. Don't Stop Believing by Journey, obviously classic.
Oh, that's one of my favorite songs.
It had such a big resurgence, I think, thanks to the show Glee, but it is just such a part of like the cultural lexicon. I think that Journey is like one of those really good bands that at the time it was cool not to like Journey, but they're just such great songwriters.
I put Journey up with like Queen for me.
Oh damn, yeah, dude, for sure. Yeah, that
Journey's next level.
Very good. Ran So Far Away by Flock of Seagulls. That's a really good one. I put as much new wave on here as I could. There just wasn't
Soft
a whole
Cell.
lot.
Here's one of my favorite songs. Soft Cell, Tainted Love.
Oh, dude, you know that shit's on my list. That's a great one. That's a great one. Shake It Up by The Cars.
That's a good song.
I like that one a lot. The Cars were a pretty cool band. And then Weezer really brought Toto back into the cultural zeitgeist with, they did a cover of Africa, which is obviously a great song, but I prefer Rosanna, which is also another really good Toto song that Weezer covers on their new album. I think it's called the Teal album. But yeah, I really like that song. I think there's just, music was so well written back in the 80s.
I agree.
And I think the 90s, like, while I like a lot of music from the 90s, I think the simplicity of the kind of 4-chord progressions and stuff that Kurt Cobain kind of popularized, it changed musicianship to where it kind of became more about a feeling than it did about like technical prowess. But and then I look at bands like Toto or like Journey, like Foreigner. I mean, there's a lot of bands that just like they were doing a lot of really cool like songwriter shit. You know, there's no like equivalent of Steve Winwood or Peter Gabriel nowadays. You know,
they are, but they're not on that level. You know what I mean? There's people out there doing crazy music, but they're not Billboard charts.
I'm trying to think like who would you say is a songwriter of today? That's tricky, isn't it?
There has to be one. There has to be someone out there that we're overlooking that's just doing incredible work.
We'll have to
Eye of the Tiger is also on here.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah, for sure. I want to say it was like number one, if I'm not
mistaken.
Two.
Number one is Physical by Olivia Newton-John. I did not realize that song was that big.
I didn't either. It's an all right song. I'm not wild about it. Eye of the Tiger, though, is definitely a good one. I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. That's a fucking awesome song. Centerfold's a good song. Don't You Want Me, Baby. That's another good one. Jack and Diane, Hurt So Good. John Cougar Mellencamp, another great songwriter. I think Hurt So Good I prefer out of the two of them, but they're both really good. Abracadabra. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on here. A lot of it is either
Fever.
like, what is it?
Pac-Man Fever.
I don't know what that is. Do you?
You've never heard Pac-Man Fever? Oh, we're gonna have to look at it after this.
Maybe I haven't. I just don't know. But I ran across it on the list and was like, man, that sounds familiar. Yeah. But it's interesting because a lot of these songs are like what you would hear on the classic rock radio station, and then the other half of them are like early MTV stuff. Yeah, so it kind of feels like it's got its foot in two worlds.
Yeah, I feel like your list is definitely more interesting. I feel like as far as the overall list, I like 85 better, but I feel yours is a lot more interesting because it is in this weird transition stage where you can see kind of the turning of the old guard into this newer synth, new wave into the 80s.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about it before. I think we kind of are on opposite ends of the spectrum about our relationship with nostalgia and stuff, but I really feel like the aesthetic, the sound, the style, like everything from the 80s is just better to me for some reason. I don't know what that really says about me. Maybe I'm in Arrested Development, but I love the way that I remember the 80s. And I also am 100% aware that it's not what the 80s was. It's just the way that I remember it, you know?
It's funny because a lot of the reason I think I like 85 music so much is not necessarily because of the music, is being such a film buff. A lot of that music was used in cinema. So I think that's kind of where my emotional attachment to it comes from.
You know, that's a really good point. And I think like that really even just reinforces it to that time and the place in our minds or whatever. And there's a lot of on 1985 that were attached to the John Hughes movies. What I didn't realize until I was looking at 82 is that the Evangelists, the people who scored the original Blade Runner, are the ones that wrote Chariots of Fire. Chariots of Fire is the instrumental song for the torch carrying in the Olympics. Dun, 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 dun,
I had no idea that was a thing.
I thought that Chariots of Fire, in my mind, that song just existed forever. I don't know why I thought that, like that. Me it was too. Older than that, like almost like classical music. And then when I was like, oh, wow, that's the people that did the Blade Runner score, it actually made me appreciate the song a little more.
Ebony and Ivory is also on 82.
Yeah, a little Stevie Wonder and who was the other?
Paul McCartney.
Oh, yeah, right? yeah. Duh.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, Stevie Nicks, Edge of 17, just at the very, very bottom of the list, number 100. That's a really good song.
On both of our lists, some of the more interesting stuff is toward the bottom, you know?
Yeah, like I would imagine if we looked at the top 500, we'd have probably found even more songs that we liked. Obviously, no shit, but I think some of the better ones, like you said, would be not all the way up at the top. Like Olivia Newton-John's Physical compared to Edge of 17, I think the list is backwards, if that's the case, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Like, even Empty Garden by Elton John, that's like a solid song.
I didn't realize that Joan Jett and the Blackhearts' Crimson and Clover cover was as big as it was.
No, there's a lot of stuff that like I didn't realize that they were, which makes sense. I guess if we're still celebrating, they had to have been huge pop successes, but there's songs that by today's standard would not really be pop hits. So in my head, they're not pop hits, even though they were at the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Little Huey Lewis in the News. Do you believe in love?
This is amazing.
Definitely, man. I'm real Patrick Bateman when it comes to Huey Lewis in the News.
Good.
Did some of my best murdering to Huey Lewis.
That's what you always listen to.
Yeah, well, guys, check it out. Look up the year you were born. Top 100 Billboard hits, and leave your favorites down in the comment section. I would love to hear some of the movie or some of the songs that you kind of that meant a lot to you growing up. You can leave your top 10. They don't have to be in any order or anything like that, but just join the conversation, get in on it. I highly recommend that you go ahead and find the playlist on Spotify and just check it out. It'll probably take you on a pretty cool trip down memory lane. Not the most topical, but it's a good mix of stuff. I think you nailed it with the FACEAPP. That's the one that I was real interested to hear your perspective on.
Yeah, I feel like we both landed pretty similar. Like, we understand the concerns, but it's overblown.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. And on that note as well, let us know what you think about any of these conversations down in the comment section below. And thank you again, and as always, for coming by to check out the content. We really do appreciate it. It means a lot. We're trying to get our subscriber count up. So if you want to help us out, all you got to do is share the podcast, you guys. It'll help us grow the brand and all that kind of good stuff. And if you want to stay up to date with all of our content and you're not already subscribed, then all you got to do is click the bell. You like how I picked up the guitar for a prop and didn't actually play it?
Yeah, I can't see anything. I just heard noise.
Yeah, I was gonna play, and then I decided no. I guess I won't. And people,
reminder that if you comment on our videos, we can use that in all advertising.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, your name, your likeness, all of that stuff. You're basically signing it over to us, and that's okay because you can trust that we're gonna use it responsibly. All right, guys. Thank you, and until next time, and on behalf of both of us, be terrible.